He's the president of Indivisible Houston, one of our premier organizations that are really trying to bring democracy back to the United States.
Right.
One of the reasons I wanted you on this morning, and well, I always have reasons to have you on because there's so much that you do in the community with regards to democracy, like a few others. You know, we have Ray, we have Neil that we see that are functional within this democracy. But right now, we have an important issue that's going to be done within the Democratic Party that I think you want to talk about. So why don't we start there as I get a few other things put together?
Sure. Well, the important issue is related to the district attorney, Kim Ogg. And there's currently pushback within the Democratic Party related to the district attorney for behavior that she has engaged in for a long time. And therefore, the pushback has been a long time coming. And it comes on two grounds. One is that she's dangerously weaponized her office using a prosecutorial double standard to go after people who she disagrees with, particularly on bail reform, while not taking the same action against people with whom she agrees, whether they're in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. And the second is that she does not uphold the values of the party and that she blocks progress on every single key reform or key issue that the party cares about, or virtually every issue, the central ones that are related to her job, at least. Within all of that, it's worth mentioning that the district attorney time and time again will always, whenever it suits her, do more than the law requires or do the bare minimum of what the law requires.
I want you to give us a good example of that, because a good example of that occurred with a person who attempted to vote, something that presumably the Democratic Party is all for, expanding the voting base legally.
So Ken Paxton referred a case over to District Attorney Ogg for voter fraud, apparently, or alleged voter fraud, related to a man named Hervis Rogers, who's 64-year-old black parolee who believed he was eligible to vote, went to the polls, waited there for 6 hours. His vote didn't count at the end of the day, but they came after him for voter fraud anyway. And there's a law that says that you have to investigate any claims of voter fraud. But what the district attorney didn't have to do is take the case before the grand jury. The law doesn't say you have to take the case before a grand jury. Now, I want people to understand just how significant this is. Investigate means you look into something. If you look at a piece of paper and you say there's nothing here and you throw it in the trash, you've investigated it. You've taken a look at it. There's some things you need to check off, but you don't have to go to a grand jury. A grand jury is there because you've brought someone in front of that group of people, a group of their peers, to determine whether or not you're going to indict that person and then drag them through a court case, which she does regularly. So I want you to put yourself in the shoes of Mr. Rogers, who thought he could vote, who the Attorney General, our indicted Attorney General, our own crooked Attorney General, referred a case over to our local district attorney, ostensibly Democratic, supposedly Democratic district attorney. And then she not only looks into it as she says the law requires, but she doesn't just do an investigation. Instead, she drags him before a grand jury. Now, at this point, if you're Mr. Rogers, you have to go get prepared for a legal fight, which means you got to pay money for a lawyer, or you have to find one who will represent you for free. You need to spend days and days preparing. You need to spend all those hours preparing for when you're going to have to answer questions. And then you actually have to sit in front of a grand jury and answer questions from prosecutors as to whether or not you should be placed back inside the system after you've already been there before. And all because you believed that you could vote and you in good faith waited for 6 hours to go and do that. And essentially, you've just been living your life and rejoined society after everything happened. But now you have to go through all of that. Time and time again, the DA drags people before a grand jury. And the grand jury might no-bill you that day, which means that they may find nothing and you don't get indicted. But you still had to go through the financial stress. You still had to go through the time stress. You still had to go through all of the troubles that anyone has to go through when they prepare for all of that. That's time that you could have been spending with your family. It's time that you could have been doing something else. And also, nobody deserves to be pushed around like that. The district attorney is a bully. The district attorney will take every opportunity to bully people, to cajole, to push, to prod, to side with the opposition party so that she can collect her own power because she's out of control.
Let me pause you right there, Daniel, because I want to make something very clear here. Kim Og, true or false, used to be formerly a Republican.
She used to be a Republican. That's why she attacks Democrats.
Right. Secondly,
who disagree with her.
Yeah, I want to prove something to the listening audience, because we don't. It's not about Republican or Democrat, but when you pick a party on false premises and damage that party from within, that is a problem. So number one, yes, she was a Republican. Number two, is it true that she, more so than not, she go after strong Democratic politicians where possible?
Oh, she goes after strong Democratic politicians with an extreme double standard to the point of absurdity. And the only Democratic politicians who she doesn't go after are the ones that agree with her on bail reform. There were 2 cases of constables that agree with her in the Democratic Party. She didn't go after them. Let's lay it all out on the table, because I want to talk about this and point very clearly to this for everybody. If you are a Democrat in Harris County, I want you to understand something. She has launched nonsensical investigations and dragged them out against County Judge Lena Hidalgo, against Commissioner Rodney Ellis. She took a character case, a character suit, basically, or a character complaint against Franklin Bynum, Democratic judge. She held Daryl Jordan, one of the great champions of bail reform, in contempt, one of our judges. And she primaried all of the sitting Democratic judges who were reformists and tried to use them as punching bags. When COVID came around, she blamed the crime spike on them. She claimed that they were letting murderers out of jail. Why did she claim this? Because they started following the law. She used to be able to get Republican judges to just skip over the different constitutional protections and steps related to bail. And she thought that she could just bully the Democratic judges to do that too.
Now, I want to stay on that tune, but I also want to show a level of self-interest here. In a county like Harris County, where you are a Democrat, I don't know, probably 60-40, 670-30. I'm not exactly sure what the numbers are. But where you are within your soul a Republican and wanting to get Republican vote, isn't it true that some of the positions that she takes are pretty much self-interest in an attempt to ensure that voting bloc? As an example, that vote, the right wing in this county, in this country, they're using fraudulent voting as a talking point. It is true that most fraudulent voting in Harris County and elsewhere has been found to be done by Republicans. This documented. Isn't that true then, that trying to put that on, let's say, Mr. I forgot his name, who she accused of voting illegally, kind of gave her points with that establishment that she could actually campaign on?
I'm sure that that's part of it. I also think that she bait and switched and lied to us a little bit about what some of her positions are, particularly when it comes to misdemeanor bail reform. She consistently continues to lie about that. I think that the political play that she makes is not just with the voting bloc, but also with large powers that be. And what I mean by that is police officers' unions, police chiefs, constables. This $1 million from Harris County goes over to Crime Stoppers. Now, Crime Stoppers, when I was a kid, I mean, I'm not going to say Crime Stoppers didn't have, issues in the past, because I wasn't old enough to know about it at different points. But what I remember is they would say, this person committed this crime. If you see them, call Crime Stoppers at this number. Right. And that was it. That was the way that they operated. Now they're doing this whole, the bail system is messed up and all this, and they always give half the facts every single time. Any lawyer that you talk to who's in the know and is honest is going to tell you that they're cutting out facts. And she repeats the same talking points. She puts out her own reports on what bail has done. They're similar to the police officers union reports, which is to say that they're completely riddled with holes. They're completely devoid of facts. She cherry picks her data. She picks which time period that she wants to focus on. And she does whatever she needs to do to make it look like the numbers are going in the direction of the story that she's telling. But if you look at any of the official, more academic sources, if you look at the Quattrone report, right, which shows that recidivism, since the O'Donnell settlement, misdemeanor bail reform, we've seen recidivism going down, we've seen less costs, and we've seen either no impact on public safety one way or another, or a decrease in violent crimes. So any reasonable study, any study that's done by academics, shows the opposite of what the DA is saying, shows the opposite of what the Houston Police
And
Officers Union is saying.
As an academic herself, because I can understand a person who doesn't know the material, a person who's just listening to ads, but for someone who is within the system, that has to be maliciously done. In other words, you actually know the truth, and the same applies to Whitmire, who is trying to make crime an issue in an election where we have a city, we have a county where we have crime on the decrease, and the increase that we had in crime matched the United States of America, if not a bit less, matched the United States of America based on other factors that are occurring within our country proper. True?
Oh, sure. No, she's lying. She's lying. There's no doubt about it. She's manipulating the facts. She knows better. She's, accused the county of trying to defund law enforcement when it's at the highest law enforcement funding levels in the history of Harris County and has gone up year over year consistently. She's lying directly to the masses. She's lying directly to the Democrats within the party. She's lying to the precinct chairs right now because she knows that she's on the run and she knows that she's been called out for lying. But I'm going to run it back down again because I want people to understand this. Who she brought long paper trails that haven't yielded anything out against so far?
Confirmed by the Houston Chronicle.
Yeah, according to the Houston Chronicle, right? So it says don't cross her. Mayor Sylvester Turner, County Judge Lena Hidalgo, Commissioner Rodney Ellis. She held Franklin Bynum. She went after Franklin Bynum on character. She held Daryl Jordan in contempt, and she went after all the Democratic primary judges. So basically, she's had a fight with any popular Democrat in the Democratic Party who's on the side of misdemeanor cash bail reform. Meanwhile, and this is important too, and I want to make sure to mention this, okay? Because she will say, well, when a case gets referred to my office, I have to go out, I have to take a look. And then she'll drag it out really, really long when it comes to these other folks. Not only does she not drag those investigations out when it comes to people she agrees with, she doesn't even take a look most of the time. So there were two constables that I want to talk about. The first one used his campaign office during the day to run for re-election. He had his campaign workers running around making sure to push his re-election. That's totally illegal. And it came out in the Chronicle, and it was such a bad scandal that he actually lost his primary. Constables never lose their primaries, but this guy managed to lose his primary. The second one, we didn't hear about any of the details, but a case was referred over to her office. We didn't hear about the referral over to her office until much later, and this is why. A lawyer stood with some women who were deputies in a constable office, and they launched a civil suit on the grounds that the constable had exploited them by putting them in bachelor party style sting operations. And in that announcement, they said that they had told the DA about the case, and the DA referred it back to the constable's office for internal investigation. So not only did she not drag out an investigation against this constable, she didn't even launch an investigation against this constable. And in both of these constable cases we're talking about, she didn't leak the details to the media. But in every other case, whenever she goes after a political opponent, she leaks all the details. She drags out the investigation for as long as she can, and she makes sure to make a case of it. And then when she gets challenged on it, she says, hey, I'm just calling balls and strikes. I'm just doing my job. I'm just a prosecutor. I investigate all sides. She always has an excuse. She always has a double standard for being the crook that she is. It's wildly corrupt. And she plays this consistently and is always in our way and is always attempting to frustrate the agenda of the reformists. And she does it for her own political gain.
That is sad, but I think one of when we started to discuss these issues, and I started to see a whole lot of the paperwork and the documentation and the evidence come across, I said, this is something that it's not only this is not a fight within, let's say, the Democratic Party. This should be something that Houston at large, Harris County at large, hears, sees, and understands. Because when you are the chief law enforcer of a city, the chief law enforcer of a county, it is essential. It is essential that you are honest. Right now, it's bad enough that we have the entire state. The legal enforcer of our entire state is a corrupt person under indictment. We don't need one that is going after people. We can't quite say illegally because district attorneys have a lot of discretion, but we can say dishonestly and corruptly, correct?
I think we can say, I mean, we'll have to see what all shakes out. She controls a lot of that information. But what we can say is she's used a prosecutorial double standard. She's weaponized her office, and she's dangerous. She's a dangerous district attorney. She's abusing the law. She's abusing her power. She's attacking her political opposition within the party. And there are folks out there that say, well, why are you attacking a Democrat? And I would like to ask that question of Kim Ott, where she consistently attacks Democrats and does it on a double standard. For her to claim that she's just playing the role of a prosecutor is completely absurd. It falls apart in all cases. I'll give you another example. Usually you get to the end of a case, and if the grand jury, as we mentioned before, does not bill you, then the district attorney puts out a statement and says, ball game's over. That's the end of the day. Thanks everybody for coming and watching. When Rodney Ellis was no-billed by the grand jury on an investigation that was launched by District Attorney Ogg, she put out a 2-page open letter that she sent to County Attorney Christian Menefee claiming that there was all kinds of civil investigations that people should look in. Highly irregular. District attorneys don't take positions like that. District attorneys don't go way out of their way to go on and on and on and about all the things that could be over in the civil side. No, you were there to prosecute the criminal side of it. And you haven't done that. And so, that's it. The ball game is over. You need to put out the same statement you always do. And by the way, one other thing, we haven't even talked about the real world impact and harm that goes way beyond these investigations as well that she's done. The overcrowding of the jails because she refuses to clear out nonviolent charges for people who are nonviolent who've been sitting in the jail for months, rotting. Some of these people got in there because of just mental health episodes and things like that. There have been people who have died in the jail because of the overcrowding. And these families are smart enough to know that she played an immediate hand in doing that because she's had this information. People have told her how she can clear out that backlog. Or the fact that she runs her office like a complete chaotic circus, which is why prosecutors stream out of that place as quickly as possible. She's always looking for staff. She's always running people out. There are stories after story after story of people who say, she had me working on this BS paper charge, or she had me working on this thing over there, wouldn't let me go after this capital murder case that I was actually working on right now. And then she turns around and says, hey, I need more funding, after she's pursuing paper trails left and right against her political opposition that have yielded no fire whatsoever. She's dangerously out of control, and it
all
impacts
of that,
people's lives.
And that's what I was about to say. All of that is horrendous. But, like I always make the distinction between how a politician deals with their employees and how the politician deals with the public at large. We elect them for the public at large. And if that affects the public at large, we definitely must be on it.
It does. And that's the thing, is that if you run prosecutors out of your office as a DA, and then you're talking about you don't have enough prosecutors, then you've made the case for us. I mean, if you can't move the cases because you can't keep people and because you're, she has got people who are in that office by day who are basically volunteering by night. Okay. Or all but volunteering, getting the pit that work on the political side of it. Okay. So, to claim that she's just running a regular old office doesn't make any sense whatsoever. She needs to honestly be, look, the electorate needs to know about what's going on right now.
Brother Cohen, thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.